Welcome to Marion County today. I'm Janet Carlson, Marion County Commissioner, and today we're going to talk about a topic that's important not only in Marion County but also in Polk County and across Oregon and even the nation, and that's the issue of homelessness. We started in Marion and Polk counties a Mid-Willamette homeless initiative, and there's a task force that has been formed, and today we're going to explore some of the topics that task force is going to be looking at. So our first guest is Commissioner Jennifer Wheeler.
Thank you for having me.
So good to have you here. So Jennifer, before we get into the Homeless Initiative Task Force, just tell us a little bit about who you are, how you got to be a county commissioner.
Okay, I'm Jennifer Wheeler. I was raised in Polk County. I moved to Monmouth, Oregon when I was 4 years old. So Polk County is definitely my home place, and I've worked for the county for 20 years now. 13 of those years were as the secretary of the Polk County Board of Commissioners. We had a vacancy on our board due to the unfortunate death of Commissioner Mike Probst, and I put my name in for that position, was appointed in April of 2011, and then elected in 2012. So here I am.
And what kind of things do you work on as a county commissioner?
Oh, there's all kinds of things, but related to homelessness, I would say I am the liaison to public safety for Polk County, and there are all kinds of things that are going on right now that I find exciting, and they also have, in my mind, a connection to the homelessness crisis that we're having right now. That we started our first mental health court last Friday. I'm on that team, so those kinds of things tie in. I'm also on a team called Adolescent Community Team, which is a team for youth who have addiction issues and their parents. So that's been going now for about a month. I'm very excited about that. But all those things tie into to people's well-being and productivity in some of those things. If you have issues with mental health, you can wind up homeless. And those are the kinds of things that I know that Marion County has a wonderful reentry program that you have been very instrumental in. And it's the same kind of thing, I think, the same kind of results that we're looking for. So.
Yeah, so that's great. So it's interesting that you are involved with public safety, because, I'm involved with public safety also in Marion County. And actually the Homeless Task Force, maybe I can just fill in a little bit here, started because Mayor Peterson, who was going to join us today but is ill, asked us if we would put homelessness on the list of topics that we looked at as a Public Safety Coordinating Council. And so we had a day where we actually focused on homelessness, and after that meeting, I set up a time to meet with Mayor Peterson to find out how she wanted to proceed. Chief Jerry Moore had been at the meeting also, Warren Bednarz, who is now on our Homeless Task Force, and he had been at that meeting. And so we scheduled a meeting with the mayor, and then I heard through the grapevine, and I don't even remember how I heard it, but someone said, Kathy Clark was on the radio, KYKN, about homelessness the other day. And so I saw Kathy before I met with the mayor, and I said, would you like to tag along to this meeting? And she's like, yeah, I really would. So then she brought Kim Freeman, who's on City Council in Kaiser, works for Oregon Housing and Community Services, knows all about housing programs. So as we met at that meeting and talked about forming the task force and the initiative, Mayor Peterson said, well, Salem is not just in Marion County. Salem is also in Polk County. And so it was right before our Association of Oregon Counties conference. I went down, you're our district chair, and said, so who from Polk County would be interested in being part of a homeless initiative? And you said, that would be me. So what was going through your mind when we first raised the issue about having a homeless task force?
Well, I think it takes a while to get your feet going and when you're commissioner, and so it's just now that things are coming together for me. I'm on the board for Community Action Agency, and so the first thing that got me interested in the homelessness was Herm Bose, who's also on that board, and who invited me to. I actually sat on the team to plan the Homeless Connect in Polk County that first year, and so I got to see the whole process, and he told me that this is going to change your life, and it did. So there were several things that happened at that first Homelessness Connect that it's inspiring, and the population, the people are inspiring, and it's very easy to want to become a part of that. So,
and each of us as leaders in our own jurisdictions, so I'm a commissioner in Marion County, you're a commissioner of Polk County, Anna Peterson, obviously mayor of Salem, and then Kathy Clark, mayor of Kaiser. We've each appointed 5 members, includes ourselves, and then 4 other members. And you chose, I think it was someone from the West West Salem Business Association, someone from the tribe, Grand Round Tribe, Salem Kaiser School District, and then one more I'm trying to remember.
Our sheriff.
Or your sheriff,
Sheriff Garden,
right.
yes.
So tell me about the thought process you went through to figure out who ought to be serving on the task force.
Well, I'll start with Steve Bobb from the tribe. Steve Bobb is, he used to be on the tribal council, and that's how I met him. And he is in charge of their veterans program. So I've also been working on some things with veterans, and so my interest, I had already contacted him about that, and it just seemed like a good fit, and it is. Heidi Mackay from West Salem, I wanted the West Salem Business Association represented because there are issues in that area, and someone from the West Salem Business Association is going to be more aware of those than I. And then the sheriff, of course. We have a new sheriff, and I can't remember. I thought in the beginning that the sheriff was an automatic, but I think I would have chosen him anyway because he's a sheriff and he's a good guy, and he's kind of one of those. I hate to speak for him, but to me he seems like more of a community policing. So he's very involved out in the community, and he's reaching out and meeting all kinds of different people. And then Irma, actually, I had never met. And I remember you and I had a conversation in the very, very beginning because I had actually chosen John Reeves, and you had already chosen him, and then we talked about
over John.
Then we talked about having a representative from the school district, and Irma came up, which actually turned out to be really great for other reasons for me personally
good.
too. So I got to meet Irma, and I actually went to school with her husband, so, which I didn't know until the first task force meeting. So I think I have a really good team. We've met since our first meeting, and I think we're going to see some good work done.
So a lot of diversity of perspective,
Yes.
and a lot of bringing some expertise to the table and all that. So another thing I wanted to make sure that we got out while I have some time with you here is that I think there's sort of the perception that people who are homeless gravitate to urban areas, and there is some truth around that. We see at least the visible homeless, as Chief Jerry Moore would call them, people who are panhandling out with signs, pushing grocery carts down the street, that type of thing. You see those probably a lot more in Salem than you do maybe in the more rural areas. But I know that in our conversations, you actually have quite a large congregation of homeless people experiencing homelessness in part of Polk County. Do you want to tell us about that and what you've observed and the needs of those people?
And part of it has to do with your definition of homelessness too, because there are different definitions. We have a community that is a trailer park with no running water, no electric hookups, no bathing facilities. That to me is homeless. And so, and it's in a very rural part of the county. Transportation's an issue. A lot of issues surrounded around those individuals who live there. Oddly enough for me, I didn't know this before the task force, because one of the things I've done is talk to some other members on the task force. I found out that we actually have an issue in Monmouth because of first-year college students who actually have to choose between someplace to live or something to eat. I didn't know that before. So already for me personally and for Polk County, that's a bit of information that I'm glad that I've gotten from this process. So I think there's just, it's such a complex issue, and there's so many different facets, there's so many different people involved, so many different reasons for being homeless or at risk of homelessness that it's going to be an interesting road. But I see light at the end of the tunnel. I think we're going to come up with some good, solid recommendations, and I'm really looking forward to the journey.
Very good. So that was going to be my question I was going to ask you next then. So what, being part of the leadership of the task force, what do you hope the task force achieves? What, if in a perfect world, if everything worked out well, where would we end up?
Boy, perfect world. In a perfect world, everybody would have a nice place to live and a job and food and be able to be self-sufficient. And that's the other thing. What is self-sufficiency? There's a different definition depending on the individual. But you did something that I thought was really great, and I'm really glad that you did, and that is Shaney Starr's task of speaking to each one of the task force members and finding out, everybody else's hopes and for this task force. And I'm really looking forward to that report. I didn't know Shaney Starr, but I like the idea that someone's actually going to do that and kind of help everybody know what the expectations are. And I don't know, I'm just excited that we're doing something, and I don't think we're just meeting. I think we're going to do something. I think we're going to have a good outcome, and I'm excited for all of the community partners to get together and find out. I know I've gotten a number of articles on homeless from all kinds of people, sending them to me. I haven't been able to read them all, but a lot of it talks about the people who are working with the homeless population coming together and having discussions about what are the needs, what are the services being provided, how could we help each other, how can we collaborate. And I think that's the beauty of this, is the collaboration between the 4 different entities. I just see good things happening. And
very good. Well, thank you so much for being on the program, and great start to our program, and we'll look forward to working together for the next year on this important issue.
thank you.
So we're back with Bruce Bailey from
Yes.
Union Gospel Mission and Shane Conaway. And Bruce, you are the executive director?
I am. I got to town in July of 2015, my first time in the Northwest. So came out of the Midwest, been in social service ministry to people for 35 years.
Very
But
good.
first time here, loving being in this community.
And Shane, your title is Transitional Services Manager, is
That's
that correct?
Yes,
And
ma'am.
tell me a little bit about what you do at Union Gospel Mission.
So I oversee the Transitional Services Ministries Department. We work with our clients in regards to job readiness, life skills. We work with a lot of our clients that are homeless and have co-occurring issues that they're struggling with as far as mental health issues and or drug addiction. Alcohol, drug addiction issues, and also those that are being released from state incarceration, which is unfortunately a big population.
Right, very good. So Bruce, you are actually also a member of the Willamette Homeless Initiative Task Force.
Right.
And participated in our first meeting that we had, and our second meeting I didn't mention in the last segment, it's March 29th from 4 to 6 at the Kaiser Civic Center. So Union Gospel Mission has a lot of programs, and I think our purpose today is not really to get down too far in the weeds about the programs, but the people that you serve, as Shane was talking about, are homeless people.
They are.
And I think a lot of times when people think of Union Gospel Mission, they think of a soup kitchen, or they think of a shelter, or they think of people, that you see outside when you drive by the shelter facility. But I've been to your annual functions where you report to the community on what you do, and there's so much that goes into connecting with someone, I guess, who has had an experience that caused homelessness, and then being able to turn their lives around. So can you talk a little bit about that process? And I know it's not monolithic. Everyone comes to you as an individual,
Right.
but when you are connecting with a person that comes to Union Gospel Mission and needs help, kind of what types of things do you do to first, second, third to figure out how to approach that person?
One of the things, Janet, we've discovered is that people who come to us, one of their greatest needs is to know that somebody cares. It's as simple as that. Yes, they come with presenting needs. I want a hot meal. I need a place to sleep. I've been out on the streets for eons, and I just want a warm blanket and a place to stay. But their real need is, and what they feel greatest about when they initially come to us is, somebody noticed me. Somebody took time to say, I'm a person. And we've heard it said through the Homeless Initiative Task Force that we are dealing with people. It's not just a flock of people. It's not just a crowd standing on the corner in front of a Union Gospel Mission, or out on the corner panhandling, or sleeping downtown in the business district. But they are individuals who are people who are disconnected from family, disconnected from prosperity of any kind. They're homeless. But when we kind of put labels on people and identify them on homeless, it makes them more distant. When they come through our doors, we initially give them an assessment. Now, admittedly, a number of people who come to us are under an influence of some kind of substance. We deal with a lot of people who are homeless, who have substance abuse problems. That's not the only reason people are homeless. It's one of them. So we have to get past the to a place where we can breathalyze them or do a panel of tests so that we can talk to them and understand what their real needs are. Many people come to us, as Shane said, they're in need of transitional services. So they're not suffering from some kind of a recovery or addiction, but they're in between. Maybe they're suddenly jobless and homeless through no fault of their own, or maybe they had something to do with it, but it's not a recovery issue.
So is getting a job the answer, because you know a lot of people talking to a lot of people these days about homelessness, and they all have kind of silver bullets. So if you just give them a job, there's got to be a connection to employment. Number one, I think that that's true, but I'm not so sure that just handing someone a job is going to solve the issue.
One of the things that Commissioner Wheeler said that that really keyed in with me is the understanding of the complexity of homelessness. There is no silver bullet. Right. There is no, to say, well, if you give somebody a job, then they're going to be able to find affordable housing and they're going to be able to sustain their living and pay their bills and raise a family and put their children through college, and that simply is, it's just not that simple. And so I think for us, and I won't speak for Bruce, can speak on this more, but for us is to recognize there are certain core foundational things that need to be in place. One is stability. One is the importance of knowing that you're cared about. So we talk about in Union Gospel Mission the fact that we serve the community, recognizing that the people that are on our campuses are our community. They're just a part of our community that need assistance at that time. So to identify the need for housing, the need for employment, and the need for treatment programs that are out there, our job as far as in a transitional services aspect is to help provide the people that we serve who are entrusted to us, to help them with the life skills, to help them with some self-value, self-worth issues, some accountability issues, and then provide them and point them towards the right resources in a hope that as a community, as the Homeless Initiative Task Force and other action agencies and stuff that are coming along, if we all plug in and work together along with the community at large, that we can eventually solve some of these issues.
So I got a couple other questions while we still got you here. One of them, this kind of fall maybe in Mythbusters a little bit. So the homeless count, which we're going to talk about in the next segment, talks about a proportion of homeless people that participated in that count saying that they chose to be homeless. Now, I would say the vast majority don't choose to be homeless, and some say they choose to be homeless. Kind of talk about the issue of choice in homelessness.
And I don't know what the percentages are. There is a small minority that come to us. I mean, that's our experience, that they want a hot meal, they want a room for a night or so, but they want to be on the street. By and large, most people come because of the circumstances that they're in right now, and they don't know how to kind of claw their way out of that. It may be something that, a circumstance that they didn't, have anything to do with it. It may be, again, something that wrong choices that they made, and that's one of the things that we have to deal with, is help people understand, get over the shame, whatever they feel, of the past, and understand there's hope for the future. So people generally want something better. They want to see there's hope on the horizon and say, my life can be better than what it is right now. So as Shane described, through comprehensive counseling, casework services, referrals, partnering with other agencies, whether they're private or government agencies, helping people navigate the system and connect with people. And it doesn't come from one agency sitting over there and another one over there, but coming together. We have a lot of agencies come and sit in our building and meet with the individuals. And oftentimes we will go to other agencies and sit with them, with the client, and help them partner together to let's come up with an answer together.
And so just in the last couple seconds, what's your hope for the task force? My
hope is that we will be able to put people in housing with skills and abilities to navigate being a household owner or a resident, and know what it's like to have responsibility and some confidence in life that I'm a valuable citizen and I can make it. And I need help from other people, but I can make it.
Thank you so much for being part of this program today and for your service on the task force. Shane, thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And for being here today, too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our last segment about our homeless initiative is with Community Action Agency. John Reeves, Executive Director?
Yes.
That's your title. And Diane Mary, and you are?
Program Manager for our resource department.
Program Manager for Resource Department. Very good. And I've known you for years and years and years. I've known both of you for years and years and years. So it's good to have you here. So first of all, maybe tell us a bit about community action. I mean, the mission of community action is to address people in poverty. So community action has taken kind of a major role in homelessness over the past number of years. can you speak to John
Sure.
maybe
Well,
first
I'll start,
and then
and
Diane?
I'm sure Diane can
Yeah.
fill in the blanks. Community Action Agency is a pretty complex organization in the community, and what we really see is that when we focus on helping people exit poverty is probably the best way to look at how we can do solutions for them, mainly looking at it from an individualized standpoint. When we look at it from that perspective, it can be very different for each person as they're moving towards exiting poverty, and it may be at different levels. For some people, it may be what we've talked about in the other segments of obtaining a home and a job and whatever that success might be. But I think it's also very important to assume that some people's success in that might look very different, and the path might be different. And so we really have taken to an individualized approach to meet those needs.
And that's primarily through the Arches program, right? And that was a major step, I think, for community action. Arches didn't exist without community action.
Right.
And I think there was like a large kind of community conversation about building that resource. Diane, you were around when that happened, right? So maybe you can give us a little history about how Arches came to be.
Well, I wasn't really part of the development of Arches, but yes, it was the community coming together and saying we want like a one-stop to really, to bring homeless services together. And we've tried to carry that on. We've got a homeless day center, and then moves to longer-term housing programs, case management, housing placement, everything from homeless folks to permanent housing. And Community Action's role around homelessness and housing comes a lot too from the State Office of Housing and Community Services. We get a lot of our funding from them, and they designate the community actions around the state as the go-to. Our role is to lead in homeless and housing services.
And until you came to our Public Safety Council meeting, I didn't realize that Community Action was already doing Housing First. So maybe you can tell us what that is and how you do it. I think to the extent you have resources, you do Housing First.
Right. Well, in our mind, it's Housing First in that some of our programs fund longer-term housing, and it's scattered site. So the first thing is, putting people into the housing. There's two programs that are kind of federally set up. Their funding is for rapid rehousing, which is folks that have become homeless to rapidly get them into housing, back into housing. It saves the most money to quickly get people back into housing. The other piece is homeless prevention. If people are at risk, then the funding helps them stay in housing because it's so much more beneficial for the people themselves and money-wise to keep them in their housing.
Absolutely. Another major thing that you do as community action is the homeless count. And you just got done doing that recently, right? And you were out actually helping with it, John, correct?
Actually, I was a part of it in a different aspect. I was at the Polk County Connect doing that portion of how the homeless count is conducted, and when they do it, they're connecting both the count itself with their Communities Connect event and making sure that all the services are there together. But yes, we just did finish that count for our 2016 opportunity.
And that's probably a really big undertaking, right? I mean, you not
Yes.
only just
It's
collect
big.
statistics, but you go out and actually talk to people. Diane, talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, the count, it's sort of two pieces to it. There's the unsheltered count where we get a lot of community volunteers and we go out. We have stationary sites where homeless people typically are found during the day. So we have stationary sites, and then we have people that like to go out and just beat the brush, hit the streets. So there's the unsheltered piece, and then all the shelters, UGM,
Provide
Salvation
data to
Army,
you, right, yeah.
provide the data on the folks that are staying at their shelters on that night. And then the Homeless Connect, or the Community Connect in Polk County, they provide Polk County's information and do a lot of outreach on bringing people to the Connect.
And I think you also have a piece of it where you count veterans and you count people in reentry clients, people that might be in jail, that type of thing.
We
So-
also go to both county jails, Marion, Polk County jails, do surveys there.
So given that, the number of homeless people, if someone were to want to know what's the scope of the problem in Marion and Polk County, it's somewhere over 1,600. Was that the number that I
about
recall?
1,660 for last year's, and we're still working on the data for this year. And it really is a comprehensive way of looking at a point in time, a day, a 24-hour period. And I think whether it's criticism or conversation, we've talked about, do we know who all of the folks are that are experiencing homelessness by that one day's count? No, we don't. There's still people out there. But it is a very useful tool to find out what the circumstances are that people are up against and what's going on in their lives, and to help us plan for strategies that, in essence, the task force that'll be working on this can utilize some of that data to make some decisions, and it'll help guide the process.
Right. We put that report, the last year's report, up on the Homeless Task Force website, which we'll have at the end, but it's www.homelesstaskforce.net. So really easy to remember. Just looking at the homeless count and the issues that we have with homelessness in Marion County. So what value does that data have in guiding activities or things? How does the data drive what it is that we want to do, I guess? What do we learn from that?
To me, I think it's really focusing on individualized circumstances. It tells us about the adverse experiences that people have been up against, what's led them to where they are currently, and it really does get to offering us an opportunity to look at strategies that can affect their life in a positive way based on what their needs have been to this point.
And for you, Diane, what is the...
Well, our data too, of course, feeds, we have our local data, which feeds into statewide statistics and what's the trends and what's best practice. And then, of course, nationally too, it's all used.
And I think kind of as a comparison, and again, don't quote me on these stats, but a lot of people are talking about Utah. We talked about Utah at our first task force meeting, and they adopted a housing first model for chronically homeless, which is a small subset. I can't remember the number. I think it's, what is it, about 300 to 600? I'm trying to remember the number off the top of my head, something like that. Of that 1,600 you consider to be chronically homeless. They've been homeless 12 months or more, right? They have some sort of a disability or mental health issue. And I think in all of Utah, there were about 2,000 homeless people, and then their chronically homeless was pretty close to ours, just with Marion and Polk County. So I would think that, we do have quite a large population if you look at the statistics that we have here. But I think I wanted to ask you, John, as a task force member, what are your hopes for us in terms of this task force, what we would achieve?
Well, I think it's really important to think about the strategies that we need long term, because I think that in our area, our circumstances are very different potentially than what was going on in Utah. As far as our housing stock is really low, and formulating the strategies that are going to allow us to have opportunities for places for people to live is going to be a huge aspect. But then in the meantime, what are we doing in between? Because we can't wait 5 years for the housing stock situation to change. We have to have short-term strategies too to really help people move into opportunities that meet their needs. And I think it's really the thing that I hope most of all is that we try and stretch what we're doing completely in a different way, whether it's social service, community members, new partnerships, new thinking, and get at strategies that we haven't tried, because we've been doing this a long time and people are still homeless, and we're making a difference, but we can do better.
Well, thank you both for being here today and for all of the expertise that you bring and just the value that you bring to this process. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for having us.
And thank you for watching Marion County Today.